Hi, I'm Will Bruin, and I was just recognized as a Seattle Sounders legend. Now I get to do voice reads for the Sounder at Heart podcast network.
Here we go. Come on! Hey, O'Shan! Let's go!
The Seattle Sounders have done it! MLS Cup winners! The Sounders rule the region! Seattle Sounders is campeón! All creatures great and small.
Rothrock going to collect it. He does just about. Runs into the advertising awning. Low to our left. Ball goes in. Oh, what a cross! And what a goal!
Where's my copy?
I got a bunch of them in the car. I'll get you some.
You're handing them out for free already.
How many
cost on them?
$50.
I'll Venmo you.
This episode of Nos Arietes is sponsored by Full Pull Wines, a Seattle-based wine retailer and proud sponsor of Nos Arietes since 2011. Full Pull was founded in 2009, is based in Seattle, and is owned and operated by longtime Sounders supporters. They offer the best boutique wines of the world to members of their mailing list, with special focus on their home, the Pacific Northwest.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of What We Learned This Week on the Sounder Hot Podcast Network. My name is Niko Moreno, and I am, for the very first time, hosting my very first What We Learned This Week, because Jeremiah is out on vacation, spending all the money that he makes for this phenomenal show. And so he left me in charge. So be easy on me. I'm not the host guy. I tend to be the one right next to Joe. I'm the Robin to his Batman, if you will. But because it is my first show, I said to myself, if you had to choose someone to get your first run at your own show after what really is a dark time in the Seattle soccer community with their Sounder fan base, I said, you know what, Brad Evans, he's a guy that when he was a player, I could ask him absolutely anything. He never shied away from difficult times. He always made me feel better. So, Brad, first of all, obviously Brad Evans here with us, the myth, the legend. Thank you for being on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. One question, though, if the Sounders are doing really well, who would you ask to be on if I'm the guy who, if they're doing really poorly, I'm your first thought to bring myself on? That's the big question.
Oh, I like that. If the Sounders are doing really, really well,
don't say Steve Zakuani.
No. That's Zakuani. Maybe if I'm trying to get a little bit more, intel on, I don't know, the difference between the EPL and MLS or something of that nature. Maybe Roman. I feel like he'd be a vibe. I don't know how much we'd get through, but he might be a guy. Maybe Ozzy. Get him on here. But when it comes to the Bratz tax and when it comes to really getting into the weeds of things, I remember that we loved having you on because whenever there was a scrum after difficult games, you always had something important to say. And I like that. You're a straight shooter, man. And so with the 6th loss of the Sounders just happening this weekend and to what almost feels like a free fall for this club, I just want to start off by just getting your take as someone who's been there, has been on that field. You have been at Providence Park. You know what the rivalry is about. But just in a broader sense, like, did you ever imagine that this club would be here? How have you been able to just digest where the team is right now?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's dark times, but this club has faced dark times before, and whether that's a big loss to Portland or a big loss to the LA Galaxy, where we have to refund fans their ticket for that game. There was a 5-game losing streak back in 2015. So not every season is going to be perfect, and we have to remind ourselves, and Steve and I would talk about it a lot on our podcast, is we're pretty spoiled as Sounders fans to have such a successful club. I mean, if you run down the game notes, there is no more successful club since 2009, and even as of late, really. I mean, if you talk about a CONCACAF Champions League title at the time, a good showing in the Club World Cup, and repeat playoff appearances, it's not all going to be roses all the time, but still we expect more out of the team for sure. But if we really take a step back and look at maybe the lineup that was just started in Portland, if you would have told Schmetz early in the season that not one time this year would he have a game in MLS play where he was able to field the same lineup back to back, and that hasn't been the case this year so far. And he would have been scratching his head thinking, what are we, 15, 16, 17 games into the season, saying I can't even field a lineup back to back to form some sort of consistency with this team. I think he would have thought you were joking, that there's no possible way. So we really have to step back and look at how this team has been able to perform early in the season before this road streak. I mean, if we were sitting pretty, right? 4th place. And then you get the result against San Jose. And then, you head into the World Cup break, you pick up those 2 losses against the LA clubs. And that was a tough one. We thought everyone was going to get healthy. We thought the team was going to come back rare and ready to go. And it just hasn't happened that way. And a poor performance against Portland kind of, had the Sounders, I think, with their tail between their legs, trying to figure out what's going on. And then you pick up even more injuries, right? Jordan Morris again gets injured. Paul gets injured 5 minutes into the game in Portland. You're having to field, players that on any given day, I don't think would see minutes for this team if the team's healthy. So I think for Schmetz, it's not a question of coaching. I don't personally think it would be a question of coaching if everyone was healthy and we lost 6 games in a row. Well, then there's a problem with how do I get my top players to perform consistently together? That just hasn't been the case. He's really they've had to draw up 6-7 players from Tacoma Defiance just to fill in gaps on this squad. And when you play against, let's just take the Portland Timbers, for example, they've been consistent with their lineup since the World Cup break, and they've been able to pick up results. And if you play against starters in this league, against kids who are playing their 2nd or 3rd game in a Sounders uniform in Portland, I thought the first half was great from Seattle. I thought they were really, really good. I was at the game calling on radio. The movement, the passes from Burnell and Kingston through the midfield, connecting their passes, some biting tackles, throwing their body on the line. I thought the first half was great overall. But second half, if you don't have your first teamers out consistently, those are the guys. Why they get paid so much money is because they can take over a game, and they do the right thing 95% of the time. Yes, they take chances and they might lose the ball, but when you don't have a consistent group of starters playing together in this league nowadays, it's going to be really hard to pick up results no matter how way you shake it. So I read on Reddit, the forums, people are disappointed, wondering what's going on. I'm getting rid of my season tickets. But if you really take a view at this thing, we don't have all of our starters on the field. And it is really, really hard to win in this league without a consistent lineup, without your top paid players being on the pitch all at the same time together.
Look, man, a lot to unpack there. I am totally with you. And let me start with, I think, the most resounding thing that you said. And it's not a coaching thing. I absolutely agree. I said this on X. To start off the game, I thought that the plan was working. I thought that it was a good setup. People had questions about Paul Arriola playing on that right back position. I thought that it was interesting because Paul Arriola is an experienced guy. He's someone that can maybe bring up a little bit of leadership. You talked about these young players. I thought it was a good goal right there. Him and Ferreira have a relationship. They have some sort of chemistry. You're trying to build something out of it. I thought that Peter Kingston playing CM was a necessity, but I also thought it was a great idea. It's a great choice that we had been calling actually with Jeremiah, because he's a guy that is a gamer. He has this older mentality. He could really be disruptive what he wants to, but he's also really good on the ball, good decision making. So I thought that, look, not only do you get that first goal, but overall you're pushing Portland. I mean, if the Sounders were a little bit more clinical, you go to the half 2-1 if Albert Rusnak puts away that chance he had. Maybe you go up 2-0 at one point if you Paul Rothrock puts one of those opportunities away. So there were things that were going right. So to your point, Brad, I don't think there is a team in MLS, call it Miami, call it, whatever you want, LAFC, that could withstand 6 players being out of their main lineup, 7. I mean, there isn't. Call it 5. It's just, that is something that I totally understand. Now, fans don't really have to be rational, and that's just the world, right? Fans got to be passionate. And I always say, look, it is your prerogative to be passionate and want to, expect a championship every year. Now, that's not realistic, but that's the way it goes. But where I do draw the line myself as a Colombian who has, been born into soccer, and we have so much passion in Colombia for our teams. Look, you could be mad at the team. You could be disappointed. Las Barras Bravas in Colombia, they will not let you forget a bad game, but they're going to support that team no matter what. I mean, they're going to show up. Like, I understand that people want to show their displeasure by maybe not renewing your season tickets, but that part I don't understand. I personally, I don't get it. I think that you got to continue to support, bring the, if you want to express your ideas, bring a sign, whatever, but be there for the guys, be there for a guy like Brian, who you see physically angry last night. He's like, I'm pissed off. Yes, I'm pissed off. And it's kind of hard to ask him for more. And look, this is coming from me, who at times have criticized Brian. Me and him have gotten into plenty of, little spells of just arguments. That's just the way it is. But right now, I think it's very unfair to blame him for any of this. And do I see the light at the end of the tunnel? That's where I don't. And I do want to break down a couple of things more of this game before we get into that, because there's a couple of other things I don't want to get into. But in terms of the big time players, Brett, I think that's where maybe I won more, right, out of an Albert Rusnak, even Jesus Ferreira, who I thought had a pretty decent game. Do you think that there's some sort of fair criticism when it comes to your, I don't want to call it designated players, just your bigger
players,
leadership players? Yeah,
of course. I mean, those are the players that should be taking most of the responsibility. Their job on the field is to take away the pressure from the youngsters, the guys that are making 75 grand a year and are expected to perform and win games in Major League Soccer, versus 1.5 million, 2.5 million. Well, there's a reason why you get paid that amount of money. And that's to put the ball in the back of the net. And that's to create high quality chances during the game. That's the reality. They all know it. For some reason, it's not clicking at this point. Being around this team for so long, the responsibility was always on, Casey Keller at the time, was one of the highest paid players on the team. Make all the big saves, and just give us a chance to be in the game. Get the ball to Freddie Montero, Freddie Lundberg, and see if we can get other guys involved. Make the players around you look like they're a $500,000 player, not a $75,000 player. That's the job of the best players on the field, is to make everyone else look better than they actually are. The responsibility can't be on Snyder, Brunel, and Kingston to make the game. Their job is to get the ball to Rusnak, get the ball to Jesus. Those two are supposed to be, as indicated by their salaries, by far, hands down, the best players on the field. That's why you get paid the big bucks. You don't get paid the big bucks to be a role player. You get paid the big bucks to create something out of nothing. And Albert did that, right? The first goal was fantastic. That overlapping run that I haven't seen from him in a long time, he was in the game. I mean, he was fantastic in the first half, I thought. And that overlapping run created everything for the Sounders, the ability to cross the ball, lift it, put it in the right spot, and for Kalani to put the ball in the back of the net. We can't rely on Kalani to score goals and to save this team. It's got to come, if I look at the team, from Jesus and Albert, to get Osaze the ball in good positions, to give himself an opportunity. Osaze's not a creator by any means. He's a big body. The ball needs to be put where it needs to be put to make him be successful. So I think more responsibility needs to be put on their shoulders. I think they feel it for sure. In moments, I thought both were good, but I mean, as a fan and as a selfish, I guess announcer now, I personally want more. When Jordan's on the field, I want more. When I mean, that's the reason you get paid the big bucks, right? Whether or not you're a TAM player or you're a DP. I mean, that's your responsibility. And and it's obviously, like I said, to make those around you look like a very, very high quality player. Back in the day in Columbus, we had Shaleto, and he was by
Mm.
far the best player on the field. And all of us were just, runners. What could we do to get him the ball? And then he has 19 assists at the end of the year to Alejandro Moreno, Robbie Rogers, Eddie Gavin, myself as a number 10 underneath him. And that's just how the game worked. And right now, when I look at this Sounders team, let's take it Sounders versus Portland in that game. When you look at Portland, they've got Velde, who's 6'3", big, strong, but really, really good with both feet. You know what he's going to do almost every single time he touches the ball, but he's still able to do it, right? And then on the opposite side, let's say a sub that comes in is Anthony, completely different than Velde on the opposite side. He's going to be tricky. He's super fast, get down the wing, make it unpredictable, right? And then you have, let's say a DaCosta who's extremely technical on the ball and can show up in different pockets. When I look at the Sounders team, to me, when I watch them play, Paul Rothrock profile, Jesus profile, Albert profile, they're all like for like in my mind. You could put any one of them along that line and they're going to give you the same exact results no matter where they play. There's no surprise for teams because they know what they're going up against. And I think we need a little bit more of that. I think we need a little bit more, whether it's pace on one side, technical ability on the other, or it's 1v1 on one side and it's big and strong and powerful on the other side. I think we might be missing that just a little bit. It seems to be the same profile is playing along that front line. So, but I do think that if this team gets healthy, they find their way. And we know that this Sounders team is a second half team. This Leagues Cup comes at probably the worst time, in my opinion, to they have to play down at 8,700 feet elevation on Wednesday night. It's going to be a really tough one. But maybe it comes at a good time to kind of mix things up and give themselves some confidence heading into the post Leagues Cup play.
Yeah, so I totally agree with you. And just to kind of close down the game, I do think that there were some positives. The intensity was there. I thought there was a lot of.
Yeah.
It was amazing, right? That's something that we've been asking from this team. I thought that was there. They won their grand duels, aerial duels, not necessarily, but they created some chances inside the box. I liked some of the opportunities that were created by Jesus Ferreira. Just that finishing hasn't been there. And that's kind of where I want to kind of put it to you, Brad. Obviously, there's been huge deficit of production when it comes to the 9 position.
Yep.
And that striker position is always going to be judged on goals. And look, I've been one that has at times been like, well, so-and-so is better on link up and, they're doing other things. They're unlocking the wingers, all this, that, and the other. But right now, man, there seems to be no one that is going to take over that job. And it goes to people's criticism of, should this team be spending more or doing more to get better at that position? Jordan Morris has been so good for so long, but man, even myself, it's hard to watch him out there. And this kid every day works so hard, and to see him go down to different injuries, it's just difficult to see. And I ask myself, how much longer does he have, or what's the next options for the Sounders? So, where do you fall when it comes to the 9, the striker discourse?
Yeah, you have to put the ball in the back of the net. That's the bottom line. When I watch the team, there seems to be a disconnect with the 9 and anyone playing underneath them. Kelsey's that big body, but he also, I thought Portland had really good moments of tight combinations inside the Sounders box, especially in the second half, little 1-2 link ups. We're missing that for sure. There hasn't been a game this year where we could say, oh, this number 9 should have scored four times. This striker had, 9 shots, but the ball just wasn't fine in the back of the net. I think it's a lack of chances created as well. And that is an area that the Sounders are lacking in right now, is a true experienced number 9 that can be a game changer. I mean, this Sounders team has proven defensively that they can keep the ball out of the back of the net. I mean, even taking two, still top 5 in goals conceded in the league. And that's with a back line that hasn't been the same throughout the whole season. So I don't think defensively is the issue at all. It's putting the ball in the back of the net. And if you go up 2-0, 3-0, the game should be sealed at that point, right? But the Sounders haven't been able to do that yet this season, is to get off on a run where they score early, 2 or 3, maybe even 4 goals. It just hasn't come this year. Chances created, high quality chances, making a keeper make 5, 6, 7 good saves in a game, the opposing keeper just hasn't worked out. And whether that's a personnel issue, I think that is absolutely up for debate at this point. It's tough. None of our strikers have gotten a consistent run of games. Is it really hard? I mean, we had, Clint Dempsey in the past, Oba, but you always had them on the field because at any moment they could get hot. They could put the ball in the back of the net after going in a slump for 4 games, and then it's 6 on the trot. I don't see that happening with anyone in the lineup right now. I mean, Musovski got hot because he started 5 games into the season last year and was consistently starting as a number 9. It took him a couple games to get the first one in the back of the net, and then all of a sudden the floodgates open. Well, we haven't had a consistent lineup this year to allow that to even happen. So do we blame it on the player? I'm sure those players are saying, well, it's going to take 3 or 4 games for me to get confident to get the ball in the back of the net, because we know as a striker, that's what happens. And then on the flip side, the front office is saying, we need results. You got to make a change. Or Schmetz is saying, oh, this guy at the end of training, maybe his finishing was just a little bit better. I'm going to make a switch. I don't know what the right answer is. All I know is, realistically, it's hard to win in this league when you don't have a team full of starters for the majority of it to get results.
And I totally get that. And just to go with the second hard question on that regard, when I look at this team and the injuries, which we'll talk about here in a second, and some of the subs that you're having to bring in, and yes, maybe there is that disconnect of not having the same 11, but it seems like the quality level has dropped because, look, the Sounders made some really good moves to get some guys some play time, but they didn't necessarily replace him, right? Georgi Manungu, Josh Atencio, Danny Leyva. I mean, there was a lot of guys that were what I would call contributors to this team last year, and they haven't necessarily replaced them. They've brought up some guys from Tacoma Defiance, and that's been great. But the question from everyone is, this team has made a philosophical. They have a philosophical edge on anyone in this league because they have such a great pipeline of their academy system, their Tacoma Defiance, and they do it better than anyone when it comes to that. But it does feel like if you were just to add a little bit more of spending, you could be great. I mean, the Sounders have been good. Have been really, really good. But maybe being able to spend a little bit more on their roster would give them the edge. Do you think that is that simple, or and I don't want to oversimplify it, because I'm not in the more money that you put in, the greater you're in this league. I completely contradict that. Look at Atlanta. You've seen it before with Cincinnati in the past. I mean, that's not it. But maybe just a little bit more of investing in this roster could have you a lot closer to that floor not dropping as low as maybe it has now with all these injuries.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a fair thought, a fair question. I mean, every fan, everyone's always going to say, let's go out and spend money. I honestly don't even know how these rosters work anymore with GAM, TAM, DP, the ins and outs of trading within the league, where you can spend your money, when you can spend your money. It just seems like there's so many constraints. It is not as easy as saying, oh, we're going to get rid of this guy and we're going to go sign this guy. If that was the case, this team would have made moves, I think, at least interleague, to figure out, how we can kind of boost the roster or give us a quick boost. Or I just know loans, getting a player on loan has really never worked out for the Sounders. Georgie was a contributor, but did he really create super high quality chances? Was he flashy in moments? Yes. I mean, when you look at even in Colorado right now, when I look at, the box score, I still don't see a player that's made the jump per se that people may have expected him to here in Seattle or even in Colorado. Josh has been a mainstay, but for him at the time, with Obed, who knew what was going to happen with him at that time, Christian obviously is the mainstay back there. Brunell's kind of on the rise a little bit in that profile for the Sounders. Was he going to be the next Obed Vargas that we can sell in the future for more, or is he going to be the next Christian Roldan to be the mainstay instead of Atencio? Atencio wanted more minutes, so to do that, you got to go elsewhere to get more minutes, and Colorado loved his profile. I just think it's difficult to even make moves in this league. With salary cap restraints where we are, we don't just think about the now, but guys that have contracts for the next 2 or 3 years, right? I don't know what the market's like for a cold striker in this league. I mean, is there a market to move someone from our team that's lost 6 in a row, that, maybe has picked up 4 or 5 injuries in the past 2 years? Is there really someone that's going to take a chance on them and think that they're a project? Trying to get more out of them in the next few years. So we don't just think about ourselves, we think about what other teams need as well. And do we have that? I don't know. We can't just go off and trade 4 players for one, because then our bench is even slimmer. What if that one gets injured and no one can step in? So it is an interesting time to be a Sounders fan and kind of scratch your head and say, well, what are the moves that this team is waiting for? What are we waiting for right now? I think that's the bigger question. I don't have the answer to that. I have no idea. But we ask ourselves on broadcast, off air all the time, is what are we waiting for? Is there a specific 2 players that we're waiting for their contract to run out that we've got agreements with? Is there someone that we're just waiting on that's going to really carry this team to the next level? But yeah, I get the investment in the team and the shout to say, well, we want more. But what is more? What is more at the end of the day? Do we get rid of 3 DPs and bring in 3 new ones? It's not really possible, I don't think. This team has never been one to buy out somebody's contract ever and just, make those switches. I don't think that this organization has ever made those business decisions, even from day one. So it's nothing new to see kind of what's happening right now.
Sounder at Heart has been around in one form or another since 2009. In 2026, though, we make a pretty significant evolution when we go analog. Yes, that's right, in the year of our Lord 2026, we are publishing a real-life magazine. We're calling this thing 4, as in Sounder at Heart 4.0, but we're stylizing it as IV because we absolutely love Roman numeral. And if you want to refer to it as IV, that's cool too. The first issue has a comic book style cover that was hand-drawn by local artist Kevin Newber. Features by Tim Foss, Susie Rance, and Charlie Boehm, a statistical deep dive by Kat Bush, a Q&A with Brian Schmetzer, a column by G. Willow Wilson, and photographs by Noah Reif, Max Aquino, Mike Russell, and Jane Dershowitz. I could not possibly be more proud of the work everyone put into making this, and I think you're going to absolutely love it. If you'd like to get your hands on one of these limited edition copies, we're currently selling them for $15 on our website. Get yours now.
No, exactly. And that's the reality. I think you're spot on when it comes to how difficult it is to kind of move things around. And there are options that look. I thought it was hilarious to hear Twelman talk about. Well, just send Joveljic to the Sounders. I mean, of course. I mean, if I'm in a perfect world, I mean, yeah, you just bring in a player. It is that simple. But it doesn't quite work like that. There are a lot of restraints in the league that you have to kind of get through. Now, there are big decisions coming up. Albert Rusnak has an option next year. There is the possibility of maybe buying down, buying out, or just trying to figure out something different, extending Jordan or doing something with his contract to get him off the DP tag. There's a lot of ways to get around it, but right now that's not the case. And the Sounders are working hard to get a couple of players, at least with the limitations that they have. They're looking at a striker. They're looking at midfielders. So they're looking at some opportunities to go and get on guys. But Brad, without anybody coming in, I remember talking to Niko, talking to Raul, and there were times where things didn't go well. And there were the famous player only meetings. There was, I don't know, asados. Is that something that maybe can help this team while players try to, regain their health? Is that something that maybe this group could do to just get off this funk?
Yeah, I'm not there every single day. Yes, I have communication with a lot of these players. I'm there on Tuesdays, and I'll sit down and talk with, just in brief, about how it's going. I know this past Monday they had a big team meeting, kind of like an open air. Let's just talk about everything. And
Mm.
I thought the attitude was great throughout training this week. Tuesday, everyone was in good spirits, good vibes, and like you said, before the game, everyone was up for it, and that first half was evident. They put a lot into that first half, more than they have. And as there was what, 4 or 5 guys cramping towards the 90th minute in that one. Um, they put a lot into that game, and it's still a group that is together. There's not a lot of finger pointing at all going on in that locker room. I think they understand the situation that they're in, and this isn't like they're at practice just going through the motions. And you better believe a guy like Jordan, a guy like Albert or Jesus, or um, even Paul Rothrock to a certain extent, right? Let's run through them. Jordan, like you said, is on a DP tag. It's not like he's going home saying, "Oh, I'm set. I'm really good. I'm doing everything I can." This dude is pissed. He's pissed about the situation. He's pissed about not putting the ball in the back of the net. He understands the pressure coming from the front office. The questions start to be asked: am I going to be here next year? Albert, same thing, has an option. Am I going to be here next year? Jesus, he was the man in Dallas, and then comes to a team where he's not the man. How do you fit into a team like that? How do you revive yourself and become just, you don't have to be the man on the team. You just have to be the man in your position. How do you mentally wrap your head around doing that? And is it external? Is it getting away from the field? Is it family? Is it, like you said, a group gathering? I, I don't know. Paul Rothrock, that's one of the other hard situations. He's the team's leading goal scorer with five or six.
Hmm.
But he also signed a huge contract, right? A massive pay jump. And he's probably thinking, shit, now the expectation is I got to put 14 of these in the back of the net and have got to have 7 to 10 assists on a year. I mean, that's indicative of his pay, right? Especially when you're not winning games, is I have to be the man here to put the ball in the back of the net. And when that's not happening, you start to ask questions of yourself. And I think that's where doubt creeps in a little bit. And that's when you just have to get back to basics and do all the little things right. Jesus, like you said, I thought was, good in moments, but still, when he's asked to defend and he wins the ball 4 or 5 times in the second half, the pass isn't an outlet pass that's connected. It's given away. And a player like that, you expect any tight situation on the field, someone like that to be able to either turn out of pressure, switch the point of attack, and get out of tight spaces. We all know that he can do it. Technically, he can do it. Physically, he can do it. It's all in the mind now, because in those tight spaces, I wouldn't put the ball in anyone else's hands other than him. So to me, it's just it's a mental thing. Nuhu in the first half, where's Portland's goal come from? It's Nuhu sprinting up the line and then trying to backheel a ball just over halfway. Physically, we know that Nuhu can do it. Technically, we know that he can do it. But you make a mental lapse error like that, instead of just kicking the ball out for a throw in for the opposing team or smashing it back to their goalkeeper and resetting defensively, it's all mental. And so I think the Sounders, when you start to lose games, any team, that doubt starts to creep into your mind a little bit. Now, what can you do to get out of that doubt? Whether, it's a group get together, a group party away from the field. Maybe it's time spent away. Maybe it's getting away from the group and, coming back together. I don't know if there's a right answer for that. I think every team ebbs and flows. I don't know what the inside of that locker room is, what they want and what they need. So it's impossible for me to tell. When I was captain and I could feel the vibe shift, then in certain moments it was, okay, yeah, I think now is a good time to have people over to have a barbecue. Or now's a good time to ask Adrian to go for a dinner. And I know that these guys have done that. I don't know like the dates or times or anything, but they're trying everything they can to keep this group together. And as evident by, if this group wasn't together, you would see more infighting in the group. You would see more after games, people pointing fingers and, in each other's faces. And the group doesn't have that right now. I think they feel like they're doing everything that they can. It's just when they watch the tape, there will be certain moments where mentally someone's checked out for a millisecond. And in this league, playing against a group of starters in Portland, if you give them an inch, they're going to take a mile. And unfortunately, they got punished on two chances. Really, I mean, Andrew Thomas wasn't really forced into anything major in that game, so it was a tough result for them. One that obviously Schmetz was upset about, visibly upset. Post game presser upset, and maybe that translates to the players, and we see a different group. But at this time, Ariola goes down. It's going to be another mixed up lineup going into Wednesday.
And I think that's the big another big question, Brad. And as we kind of close down on the episode, I'm with you because I think Brian's tried to do a couple of things. That captain band went from Nuhu. Now we saw Albert with it. I think that the group is together. They're trying to figure it out. They just have not been able to. I call it just not good enough. It just hasn't been clinical enough at times. Like as you mentioned, a pass going the wrong way. In this league now, it's about small margins, and if you are not there in that game and you're not as clinical as you need to be and you're not as sharp as you got to be and you lose a defender in the last moment of a game, you're never going to win that. I think in the second goal, Paul Rothrock could have done more to close down that gap right before that shot gets taken, and that was a big moment. That window of a couple of seconds was the difference between going home with a draw and going home with no points. So I do think that there is a level of truth to this team being very cemented still. But the one thing that they have not been able to avoid, Brad, is the injuries. I mean, it's 3 injuries yesterday. Peter and Kim and Ariola is just time and time again. I don't know if Providence Swedish Performance Center is on top of like a ancient burial, or I don't know what's going on. Like I have no idea what it is that's happening, but this team cannot shake the injury bug.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's a great question. I ask myself that, a lot too. Look, I always had, some nagging injuries, and every sports team goes through it, and some more than others. I don't know what the answer is. I mean, we know that they've got a top class facility. I think everyone's aware of that. They got every single modality that you could possibly think of to, try and make yourself as bulletproof as possible. And for whatever reason, when you get hit by the bug, it kind of just snowballs and keeps going. There's no, if someone had the right answer, then it'd be a magic pill. We'd already have heard about it on a podcast and there's a lot of people that claim that they know, but when you talk, to sports professionals on a podcast or whatever, it's everyone's a professional. I don't have a good answer for you. I would love to say, oh, you just do more of this and you'll stay healthy, or you'll do more of that and stay healthy. I don't know enough about, that side of things. The only thing I knew how to do was try and rehab to get back as quick as possible. I'm not a sports scientist. I don't know, but they wear GPS, they wear heart rate, they track everything. I mean, they've got great nutrition, breakfast and lunch down there from, their chef, who's fantastic. It's not a nutrition thing. I don't know. Honestly.
I thought Brian was spot on about, and I like the fact that he was like, look, we're going to look into it. There's clearly something that, are we overcooking the players? Is there a training pattern that's not working? And I just kind of mentioned it because that has been a huge factor in where this team is now. And it's something that we can't decipher. It's something that they're trying to get. And, every fan base always feels like they are the most injured team in MLS, when if you look at the stats, maybe not so much. Now this time around, it is pretty clear that you're starting to get into the bare bottom of your roster just to try to fill teams up. And at some point, in my opinion, you're going to have to figure out if you got to change the staff, or when you train at specific days, match day -1, whatever it is. That I do think that there is something to be changed there, and we'll see what that is. But the game ahead Brad, is against, as you mentioned, is not just in altitude, but is against one of the best teams, probably the best teams in concacaf, to be quite frank. They're a team that's coming off of a 3-1 win against Necaxa. They have a little bit of everything. They got speed out wide with Vega and Angulo. They have a goal scorer. They have a very good defense, very experienced as well, with a guy like Gallardo coming up. He's so good on those overlaps on the left side. I don't know if anyone's expecting the Sounders to win, but as a player, and I always say, you got to play the games. You have to play them. I'm always going to give a team like the Sounders a puncher's chance. How do you do it? How do you go down there and get yourself a result that could maybe catapult you and change the momentum? I mean, if you go a draw in Toluca, even just a draw, that's going to be a huge boost of confidence from a team that's just trying to get something going their way.
Yeah, I think, and Toluca will know that. They know that the Sounders just need a draw. They are bruised and battered right now. They'll know that if they get on top of the Sounders in the first 5 to 6 minutes, the game's over. And it could be, what happened to us in Santos, a decade ago, losing. We try to push for the game, play offensive, and then all of a sudden it's bang, 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 and we lose. I think 5-0 down there, something 5-1 maybe. It could become one of those nights. But if Toluca's smart, they played on Sunday, will they make changes in this game? Will they know that altitude is their friend? Can they bring on maybe a fresh 7 to 8 players and still get a result? I think that tactically maybe they're thinking the same thing, because they'll have another, they're in a tournament and they're going to have to travel after this game too. So they need results and they need to put themselves in the best position to advance out of the group. And for the Sounders, I think you're right. I think you go for a tie. You better believe all these guys are probably calling Danny Leyva to say, hey, what do we need to do to get a result against this team, right? He played 86 minutes in that game. And so a good opportunity for the Sounders to have some inside intel. They'll be watching all the tape they can, but the Sounders have to just play tight defensively. I don't know if they'll go with 5 in the back and just try to withstand. I don't think you can do that in a place like that against a team like Toluca. If you just allow them to have the ball, it's going to be a long night for the Sounders. And I know that the guys don't want that either. I think you stick with the same 4-2-3-1, maybe 4-4-2 to start the game and see if you can pin them back a little bit. They do play a 4-2-3-1. Playing a 4-4-2 against that is tough. But if you can put them under some pressure for 20, 25 minutes and then kind of maybe take your lumps and sit back and get into halftime 0-0, you give yourself a decent chance. I just know from past experience playing in Mexico, if you try to really offensively push, it catches up to you real quick. We had a decent start at Azteca against Club America, and then all of a sudden the altitude kicks in, and they bring guys off the bench that are starters on any MLS team, and it was a decent result, but it was a tough one for us to grind out. I think we lost 2-1 in that game, maybe. So it's a difficult place to play. One of the highest elevation stadiums in the world. So it's going to be a tough night for the Sounders, especially when you look at the end of that game, 4 or 5 Sounders cramping. You hope they have enough in the tank to push in this one.
Yeah, we still haven't heard word also on what happened to Peter. It looked like maybe he was cramping up as well. We have not necessarily heard back. We'll probably know more about it in about the next hour when training is done. But quite honestly, I agree with you. I don't think that you can go down to Toluca and just absorb pressure. You got to be able to keep him at bay. I like the 4-4-2 setup just to simplify things a little bit. Maybe you don't create as many overloads. Maybe you don't push whether it's Kalanickos or Rienzi or Nuhu as high. Maybe you just kind of try to simplify the game a little bit more.
That's one thing I watch with Kalani. We all know he's a fantastic athlete, but it seems like the Sounders are relying on Kalani to be this offensive presence higher up the field. And if I have one thing to say to Kalani, it's just your job number one is to defend and just sit back and keep possession. Just maintain, because when it comes to playing in Mexico or in Portland, the minutes between 70 and 90 are just elevated so much higher that if you run yourself to death in the first 45, 55 minutes of the game, it's going to catch up to you really, really quick. And I see that. I see he gets tired in minute 70 and he's not able. He's so mentally stubborn that it's almost like his brain takes over and says, I have to go, I have to go, I have to go. On the field, yes, the coach picks the team. Schmetz isn't going to sub you off because you decided not to make a run and just play smart. And after the game, you can have a conversation and say, look, 60th minute, I was exhausted high up the field. And then it was a turnover. And then I'm sprinting back. And then I got forward again. And then Portland came down and I got to defend Velde now. And I can't get tight because I'm too tired. And then Velde cuts in, recovers the ball, plays that pass to DaCosta. DaCosta finds by, and then bang, ball's in the back of the net. You have to be thinking, what if I didn't make the 4 runs before that? Could I have gotten touch tight with Velde when I deflected the ball and then he was able to turn and face me? Could I made him play back to goal in those moments? That's where the smarts have to come in. And you gain that through experience and unfortunately from taking goals and then watching it on tape. But those little moments from him have to be defend first. How can I be 100% defender? And then if I get the opportunity to get forward, I just connect my pass. I don't have to score the goals. The goals have to come from the Jesus, the Rusnaks, Morris when he's on the field, those Paul Rothrock. That's where they get yelled at in film, not yelled at, but talked to because the ball isn't being put in the back of the net and the chances aren't created. Schmetz is never going to go to you and say, why didn't you create more goal scoring opportunities from a right back position? So I don't know if that conversation is being had, but that's what I see when I watch, a player like Kalani, playing these games. And when it comes to playing in Toluca, they're going to sniff that out. If he's high up the field, ball gets switched to the other side, and he's still high, the first thought that they're going to say is, how do I get into the vacated space now that their right back has just left high up the field? It's too smart at the next level, especially playing away from home in Toluca. So just defend, defend, defend.
Not to mention the fact that you'll be winded by the 18th minute. I don't care how good of an athlete you are. When you play in elevation, it just completely changes your outlook and how you play the game. So you got to let the ball do the work. You got to be able to defend with possession.
The ultimate neutralizer, and it'll make you feel like you've never played the game before.
Yeah, Brad. Well, thank you so much, Brad. I'm going to give you one thing because I was just getting a text and it looks like I got a hit. And I'm just going to share that name with you because at this point, I don't know if we're going to get any of these guys out there. But it looks like the Sounders are targeting a striker, Philippe Kenny. He is a Senegalese 27-year-old that is currently playing in the Swedish Super League. FC Search. So, hey, you know what? He, according to Transfer Market, is about 2.5 million, which that's just a number, to be quite honest. But hey, Sounders are out there looking for maybe some speed, a guy that seems to be a point player that gets in the box quite often. So there you go. There is another potential rumor that gets added to this show. I will say this, that there is an urgency from this front office. They see what's going on. They are not turning a blind eye to the fact that there's all these injuries and that there is all of these League Cup games coming up. And obviously MLS play. The Sounders, for better or for worse, and you might not believe it, but I certainly think that it's more than just a phrase. They do want to get trophies. They just won one last year, and they want to do that again. So there is that urgency. That's why I'm starting to see some names out there. Don't know if it'll be a possibility, but it's interesting.
It's difficult, though. We kind of have to put our recruiting cap on. Why would a player from this, let's just take this player, for example, Swedish First Division, come to MLS when he's already in the European mix with European scouts all the time, watching a player like that? What would be any player in Europe? What would be the reason to come to Major League Soccer, to the Sounders at 26, 27 years old in your prime? Number one, it's probably money, right? And then number two, I don't know. I mean, it just begs the question. It's really difficult to be a Sounders recruiter trying to get players to come to Major League Soccer. And I know that they do their damnedest and hardest to try and convince a player from Eastern European country to come to Major League Soccer, away from their families, away from everything. instead of that player going to maybe from, Eastern Europe to Sweden, and then making the jump there from the Eredivisie to Holland. Everyone there already knows the track to make it to the Bundesliga, Premier League, La Liga, whatever league you want to talk about. It hasn't become yet that a player comes from those countries that says, oh, I want to take my chances in Major League Soccer, thinking that it will get them to a bigger club in Europe. And I think that's the Sounders, MO is, well, we have to start to build that pipeline here in Seattle to sell those players, that we can convince players from Europe that, yes, this is a viable pipeline to make the next step forward, to get really competitive games, to challenge yourself, to travel across a giant country. If you go to Sweden, you're just in a bus. I think there's a couple games that you have to take a flight for, but everything is close to home, most of the European countries. So it's really difficult to try and convince players to come here in Major League Soccer to make the jump. So like you said, the consistently there's 3 or 4 players on their radar from X country, but to really convince them, they have to want to come here, number one, and really believe in what the Sounders are trying to do and the project that's here.
Yeah, and again, the salary cap constraint. So can you get him like on a loan with an option to purchase in the future, like they've done in the past? Can you break it down? Because there is supposed to be changes to the rules and regulations starting off next year. So we'll see. But I'm totally with you. Although MLS has become a bigger trampoline, into European teams, because there are so many clubs within MLS that have direct contact or direct ownership with other teams in Europe. I got to tell you, Cucho Hernandez was a guy that came here with the idea that he was going to go into a bigger team. He did that recently. So there is that possibility. John Duran, who ruined his career, unfortunately, but he was in Chicago Fire. He ended up going to the Premier League. And so, it does happen, but I'm totally with you in the fact that, the Sounders do have a difficult time and they have a hard time ahead trying to get some players in. Hopefully they can do that. But Brad, look, thanks again for just jumping on with us, helping us take a broader look at what's going on with the Sounders right now. You are, again, a voice. Look right here behind me. My son took my TV to college, so I was like, I got a big void. I ended up just I got you right back there, man. You're a legend. We know that we can always get a good insight from you. So I appreciate it, man. Thank you for hopping on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Let's go Sounders.